Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Stotra Shada Shri Srimad Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Stotra Shada Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupada Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupada Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishtom Vishnupada Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Vaishnav Guru Varga Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai. All glory similarities Hare Krishna, all glory similarities Hare Krishna, all glory similarities Hare Krishna, all glory Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glory Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishnu Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Prabhupada Devam Nirvishesha Shanyavani Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, welcome to Shri Caitanya Caritamrita class. We are going to be proceeding now with our delving into the heart now, not only of Mahaprabhu's South India tour, but in a sense of Mahaprabhu's whole pastime. What we are coming to now in this 8th chapter of the Madhya Lila is of great importance. In one sense, it can be said that the Mahabharata, with all the value that it has, That value, in a sense, is so wonderfully summarized and encapsulated in the great value which is held in the Bhagavad Gita. In the same way, this Rai Ramananda Sambad, which we are about to embark in a study of, is like what the Gita is to the Mahabharata. It is like that to Caitanya Caritamrita, and because Caitanya Caritamrita is that nectarian elaboration of Mahaprabhu's Lila, in that sense it is also the heart of his pastime. So then, what is it? So we touched on a little bit before about the nature of the Narasingha temple in Singhachalam, which Mahaprabhu was finding himself in. And being cleansed by there, he visited that deity of Nrsimhadev there, and he danced before it very ecstatically and tasted the nature of the rasa, of the reciprocal love that Nrsimhadev has for his devotee there. And then he set out. And as we read, now continuing with text 9 of chapter 8 of the Madhya Lila of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, we hear that the next morning, in the great ecstasy of love, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started on his tour with no knowledge of the proper direction, and he continued the whole day and night. As previously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu converted to Vaishnavism many people he met on the road. After some days, the Lord reached the banks of the river Godavari. When he saw the river Godavari, the Lord remembered the river Yamuna, and when he saw the forest on the banks of the river, he remembered Sri Vrindavan Dham. After performing his usual chanting and dancing for some time in this forest, the Lord crossed the river and took his bath on the other bank. There's a very sweet point, of course, to Mahaprabhu being that perfect devotee, because who else can be the greatest devotee than the Supreme Lord himself, with all his omnipotence, taking himself to the task of tasting the heights of devotional service. And so in this moment, in this mindset of pure devotion, Mahaprabhu, he is seeing that everywhere is Sri Vrindavan Dham. Everywhere is reminding him of it, and everything is bringing him into the ecstatic moments which Vrindavan Dham triggers. And there is a nice echo in Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, as it is, he very famously writes in his purport to the 14th text of the 8th chapter, which speaks of those with the Ananya Chetaha, those with the purified consciousness, which is, of course, defined as those practicing Shuddha Bhakti, pure devotional service. And those people, by practicing that pure devotional service, and what, of course, is the nature, or is the name of such a person who practices devotional service is a devotee, and therefore a person who practices pure devotional service is a pure devotee. And Prabhupada writes that sometimes it is said that one should retire to Vrindavan, one should retire to the Dham and practice their bhajan there. However, a pure devotee, by his behavior, no matter where he is, establishes the atmosphere of Sri Vrindavan wherever he goes. And we see this so beautifully embodied in the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, who went to America and founded their new Vrindavan, which in many great ways is just as potent as being present in the Vrindavan that we know. Why? Because that atmosphere has been recreated by the vision coming through again, that pure Ananya Chetaha, that pure consciousness of the pure devotee. And so, the pure devotee perceives everywhere Vrindavan, and by such perception creates the atmosphere of Vrindavan wherever he goes. So after performing his usual chanting and dancing for some time in this forest, the Lord crossed the river and took his bath on the other bank. After bathing in the river, the Lord walked a little distance from the bathing place and engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna. One may wonder why he, after bathing in the river, walked a little distance away. This can be a little confusing. It seems a bit unnecessary. We know there are no hard and fast rules for chanting the holy name of Krishna. Engaging in service to Harinam Prabhu, the great Lord of the holy name of Hari. This is not requiring any material factors to support itself. It is purely transcendental. Golokera Premadhana Harinama Sankirtan. This holy name is beyond any of the concerns of the material world and pertains only to transcendence. So why then did Mahaprabhu leave after bathing in the river to go somewhere else? It is because taking the place where one takes bath is a popular place, and this is a popular place, popular enough that soon we will meet our dear Ramananda Rai at this location. However, in such a busy place, even though the holy name and its chanting is transcendental to any material concern, it still was a bit too congested, and so Mahaprabhu moved elsewhere in order to engage in meditation upon the holy name of the Lord. At that time, however, accompanied by the sounds of music, Ramananda Rai came there on a palanquin to take his bath. Many Brahmins following the Vedic principles accompanied Ramananda Rai. The vidhi motte, according to ritualistic rituals, Ramananda Rai took his bath and offered oblations to his forefathers. These Brahmins are Vedic Brahmin. They are following the Vedic principles, and in this sense, meaning those rules and regulations, the principles of Varnashram Dharma, the principles of karma, how to be a good person. These are the principles which they are following, and as we'll hear when we go deep into the conversation which is going to ensue between Ramananda Rai and Mahaprabhu, these are principles which, while good to some degree, are very preliminary to the actual realization of the depths of true spiritual life. So, they are held within this domain, and so they provide a very good contrast and a very good backdrop for what we are about to see in this meeting. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand that the person who had come to bathe in the river was Ramananda Rai. The Lord wanted so much to meet him that his mind immediately began running after him. Mahaprabhu, that great, strict sannyasi, with so much great sense control, he is losing his mind, wanting so strongly to have the association of this person, which we know Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya has said is a great Rasik Bhakta. Again, here we find that wonderful height of what it truly means to taste spiritual life. We often think, attachment is bad. Don't be so attached, Prabhu, we might say. We need to be detached. Actually, we do not need to be detached. We do not need to be away from the agitation of the mind. In fact, true spiritual life is to be incredibly attached. It is to have our minds incredibly agitated, but not agitated for the selfish and suicidal pleasures of this material world, but instead to be attached and agitated in attraction to the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord's associates. And in this way, Mahaprabhu, his mind immediately began running after this great devotee, Ramananda Rai. And furthermore, there is a tension, because we know in the internal mood of Mahaprabhu, even though according to his external purpose, he has come on the South Indian yatra, the South Indian tour, in order to liberate and find all of his loving servants and to preach the Sankirtan mission of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, to chant and to preach this mission all around South India. In his internal mood, he has come to meet Ramananda Rai and to hear of the essence of spiritual life from him. And so, Mahaprabhu is very excited to meet this Ramananda Rai. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is running after him mentally, he patiently remains sitting. Ramananda Rai, seeing the wonderful sannyasi, then came to see him. So here we have Mahaprabhu, he is still following those somewhat strict regulations and standards and etiquette that his sannyas ashram would demand. Sri Ramananda Rai then saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be as brilliant as Shuryo Shoto, 100 suns. The Lord was covered by a saffron garment. He was large in body and very strongly built, and his eyes were like lotus petals. When Ramananda Rai saw the wonderful sannyasi, he was struck with wonder. He went to him and immediately offered his respectful obeisances, falling flat down like a rod, offering Dandavat Namaskar, Dandavat Pranam. The Lord stood up and asked Ramananda Rai to arise and chant the holy name of Krishna. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very eager to embrace him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then inquired whether he was Ramananda Rai, and he replied, "Yes, I am your very low servant, and I belong to the Shudra community." We will comment on this a little later. Initially, I wanted to comment on this beforehand, to start with the external considerations and then go deeper, but today is a very special day. It is the appearance day of Lalita Sakhi, and therefore it is relevant to the day. So we will go to the higher consideration first, and then we will go to the more external one later. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then embraced Sri Ramananda Rai very firmly. Sri Ramananda Rai, the Kayastha. Indeed, both the master and the servant almost lost consciousness due to ecstatic love. Their natural love for one another was awakened in them both, and they embraced and fell to the ground. Srila Ramananda Rai was an incarnation of the Gopi Vishakha. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Lord Krishna himself, there was naturally an awakening of love between Vishakha and Krishna. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the combination of Srimati Radharani and Krishna, and the Gopi Vishakha is the principal Gopi assisting Srimati Radharani. Thus, the natural love between Ramananda Rai and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awakened, and they embraced. So that was the purport of Srila Prabhupada, commenting upon that their natural love for each other was awakened in them both, and they embraced and fell to the ground. And what is this natural love? It is their svabhavik prem, which is in both of them. And what is this svabhavik prem? And again, this is what Prabhupada clarifies in his purport, that Ramananda Rai was an incarnation of the Gopi Vishakha. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Lord Krishna himself, there was a natural awakening of love between Vishakha and Krishna. And here we find a very interesting point. Because we will come to now hear the first hintings of that internal purpose. Vishakha Gopi, as we know, is one of the Ashta Sakhis in Vrindavan, one of the dear friends of Srimati Radharani. And the fact that Ramananda Rai is Vishakha, it is also said that he is Arjuna, but we will again come to that later, is no coincidence. It is not that these personalities take random roles in Gaura Lila. these personalities, they carry over for significant reason. We know Brahma has taken the role of Haridas Thakur in order to delve properly into that mood of humility. So elsewhere it's written that, and although it is not to be taken strictly, that he is an incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj as well, but it said that he also carries the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. Why? Well, because Prahlad Maharaj was born in a family of demons and yet was a devotee. And we know Haridas Thakur was not born in the highest of births and yet was the highest of all births. In the sense of the individual who had taken birth was an absolutely pure devotee. So, Ramananda Rai is Vishakha. But what does this mean? Well, we must understand again, Mahaprabhu's Leela, what is the point of Mahaprabhu's incarnation? He has come in order to understand the mood and heart of Srimati Radharani. And we read at the beginning of Caitanya Caritamrita that Krishna, in the pastimes of Mahaprabhu, Krishna in Gaur Leela, is Krishna enrolled in the dancing school of Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani is teaching him the dance. The dance the dance of Krishna Prem. So, she has her two best friends. The Ashta Sakhis are all very high. It is not to say that therefore Tungavidya and the Champalika and and all the other various assorted Ashtasakhis are not important. However, we know that the list is always presided over whenever it is given in the Goswami Granthas and other assorted literatures as Lalita and then Vishakha. So she has sent her two friends in this dancing school in the same way as a teacher might send some of their best students or some of their close friends who they know are very expert in those topics to assist in teaching. In the same way, Srimati Radharani has sent her two friends of Vishakha and Lalita in order to help Krishna dive deep into understanding this Krishna Prem, which is why we see that Mahaprabhu, when he is delving even deeper in the Antya Lila, in the Gambhira, into the rasa of Srimati Radharani's mood of separation, it is Lalita and Vishakha Sakhis who are accompanying him in the Gambhira. And who are they in Gaur Lila? We hear here that Ramananda Rai is Vishakha, and we know from Prabhupada's books elsewhere that Swarup Damodar is Lalita. However, there are a few interesting considerations that come up from this. So Mahaprabhu, now being Krishna himself, is coming to be educated in the heights of Radharani's mood from Vishakha Sakhi, who has been sent by Radharani in order for Mahaprabhu to receive this education. However, we may ask, why not Lalita Sakhi? We know that Swarup Damodar was present in Navadvip for quite a while. Swarup Damodar was a denizen of Navadvip, and he later took sannyas, as we know. And taking sannyas, he decided to keep his brahmachari name, which is why he has kept the name Swarup Damodar. And he has not donned, as Mahaprabhu has, the typical clothes of a sannyasi. However, he has still entered into sannyas. And this personality, Swarup Damodar, Mahaprabhu had access the whole time too. So we may wonder, why did Mahaprabhu wait this long? Why did Mahaprabhu wait until he took sannyas? Well, maybe we can say, as we've discussed before, that Mahaprabhu's taking sannyas is where he emptied himself into that mood of the gopis. And so, emptying himself into that mood, we might say, now he is abandoning Navadvip in order to properly delve into these things fully. We may say that. However, that is not a compelling reason. And the reason for that is, well, Mahaprabhu, he could very well have requested Swarup Damodar to enlighten him in Jagannath Puri, where he was dwelling. Why is he trekking out all the way into South India in order to have the association of Ramananda Rai in order to learn these things? And the answer we can find by stressing the difference between Vishakha and Lalita. Firstly, there is the question, before we properly delve into the answer of this question, there is another question of the identity of Mahaprabhu's associates in Gaur Lila, who are incarnations of associates from the Vraj Lila. Because we'll find various descriptions at times for the identity of these devotees. Kavi Karnapur has written a wonderful book, Gaurganodesha Deepika, which is very much reminiscent of Rupa Goswami Prabhupada's book, Radha Krishna Ganodesha Deepika. Both books are a sort of who's who, a list of the actors of each Leela. The first of Kavi Karnapur, obviously being about Mahaprabhu, and the second, which I mentioned, about by Rupa Goswami, being about Vraj Lila. And in this book, we'll find some conflicting descriptions as to the identity of who these associates are. We will find lots of conflict, however, and this is to be expected because Kavi Karnapur himself says that this text has been compiled by researching and asking the leading associates and devotees of their views and of their understandings and of their realizations. So at times, depending on the rasa of devotees or of their insight or of their realization or even of what they mean in tattva, in philosophical truth regarding the identity of these devotees, there may be some contradictions. And there are some apparent but not real contradictions. Well, we find that very early on when Kavi Karnapur discusses the tattva of Navadvip. He says some people say it is Vrindavan, some people say it is Vaikuntha, some people say it is Shvetadvip. And after giving all these descriptions, he doesn't really resolve them. He just says all glories to Shri Navadvip Dham. So there is some degree of discrepancy which is allowed in this text. However, we will read in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Navadvip Dham Mahatmya that Jagannath says that anyone who properly presents this view that Navadvip Dham is Shvetadvip or is anything less than Goloka Vrindavan itself, this person is a fool. So, presenting this view, we can find some clarification through the lens that is given by the mercy of the Guru Parampara, which is giving us some clarification into the tattva of this topic. In the same way, we will hear some descriptions of Vishakha, of being both present as Ramananda Rai and as Swarup Damodar. So, this is a bit confusing because we will find that, in fact, Kavi Karnapur at times seems to favor the view that Vishakha actually has taken the position of Swarup Damodar and not of Ramananda Rai. And at times he seems to say that Lalita is Ramananda Rai and not Swarup Damodar. However, in context of this, in context of service to Srimati Radharani and in context of the Rai Ramananda Samvad, in this context, Srila Prabhupada, in a similar way to Bhaktivinoda Thakur with Navadvip, has said that we should take Ramananda Rai to be an incarnation of the Gopi Vishakha. Elsewhere, we find Prabhupada even while discussing the identity of Swarup Damodar as Lalita, he will always identify it in servitude to Srimati Radharani, and he will seem to present his identity as Vishakha as a secondary opinion, clarifying the main identity as Lalita. So, following in the understanding that is given to us, and in the presentation of this section, which is given to us by Srila Prabhupada, we should take Ramananda Rai to be Vishakha and Swarup Damodar to be Lalita. But so then we come back to that first question that I proposed. If Mahaprabhu had access to Swarup Damodar this whole time, if Mahaprabhu had access to this intimate associate of Srimati Radharani, why did he not learn from her? And in order to understand that, we should try to come to understand a tiny bit of the personalities and natures of Vishakha Sakhi and Lalita Sakhi. As we know, of all of the associates of Srimati Radharani, 8 are foremost. The Ashta Sakhis, which we can so beautifully see with Radha Madhav in Mayapur. Of these, we know these 2 come first most often, Lalita and Vishakha. And they are both very, very close to Radharani. They both understand her very well and are very intimate with her. Lalita, we are celebrating today her appearance. However, she is 27 days older than Srimati Radharani. And because of this increase in age, even though we might not think of it as much, at least in the spiritual world, from what we can tell, it seems to have a lot of importance in her older age. She often takes a heavy mood, a heavy role. She is a somewhat angry person. In fact, this is the description given by Rupa Goswami, that she is very much filled with krodh. Not the krodh that we hear of, that we must transcend, that Rupa Goswami describes in the Upadeshamrita. Not the krodha vegam of material life, but instead a krodh which is coming from her inherent prem, her inherent love for Krishna. So with this, she is rather angry. And who is she angry towards? Well, she is angry towards Krishna. And with that anger, she is taking that age that she has to Srimati Radharani and advising her and guiding her. She's always telling Radharani, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. And what is it that she feels Radharani should do or shouldn't do? Well, she's very, very upset, Lalita Sakhi, that is, with that Krishna, who is always breaking the heart of Radharani, who in their transcendental pastimes is always hurting her. Radharani is so often having her feelings hurt by that transcendental, playful boy, Krishna. And so Lalita, in the maturity of her extra age, with her extra maturity, she tells Radharani, she says, next time Krishna comes, just tell him to go. Put your foot down. Stand up for yourself. Don't let yourself be mistreated by boys in this way. You should find somebody better than this Krishna. Put your foot down. Tell him to treat you with some respect. And Lalita, she will speak like this to Radharani. And Radharani, she holds Lalita very dear. It is said Lalita, she understands so intimately Radharani's pain that she gives very sweet advice that helps quell the mood of Radharani. So she takes this, Radharani, and hearing this, she'll sometimes try and put her foot down, put Krishna in his place. We know, of course, Radharani's rasa with Krishna is more relishable, in a sense, than Chandravali's, because Radharani is less submissive. Radharani is more likely to be angry and to express her dissatisfaction with Krishna. And this anger is, again, not a violent anger, like the anger we know of this material world, but as a beautiful transcendental anger which flows from the transcendental prem in the heart of Radharani. Anyways, these are high things and we won't dwell on it for too long. But because of this, even though Radharani tastes that anger, it is not a primary mood of Radharani. So Lalita, she does not fully match with the mood of Radharani, even though she tastes a lot of what Radharani tastes. However, Vishakha is different. Vishakha's appearance day, we are today celebrating the appearance of Lalita, but in the day after tomorrow, we will be celebrating the appearance of Vishakha. Vishakha and Radharani are born on the same moment. So Radhashtami is also Vishakhashtami, we can say. Vishakha and Radharani are born at the same time, and therefore they are born under the same astrological influences, and they are of a very, very similar mood. The word Shakha can mean like a branch. We know in Bhagavad Gita, Bahu Shakha, the many-branched mind. And so Vishakha, it is almost like Vishakha is a branch of Srimati Radharani. And because of this intimacy, because she is branching out from Radharani, she is very, very similar in mood to Radharani. She is almost always echoing whatever sentiment Radharani is having. She is echoing that sentiment in her pastimes. And so because of this, even though Swarup Damodar was available, and even though Swarup Damodar knows the heart of Radharani, because his bhav, being that bhav of Lalita, because that bhav is somewhat removed from Radharani's, because it is somewhat different, he was not as fitting to hear from as Ramananda Rai, who is exactly the mood, exactly the heart of Srimati Radharani. Being exactly that mood, being exactly that heart, this is why Mahaprabhu has traveled so far to speak to Ramananda Rai and to hear from him. And so, this is why this conversation which follows is so high, because here we will find in words described the purpose and essence of the lesson which Mahaprabhu, which Krishna has enrolled into the dance school of Srimati Radharani to learn. So, with this, we can come to hear something, we can come to understand why he has come to Ramananda Rai. We will speak of the other identity of Ramananda Rai after we speak a few more points on this topic. When they embraced each other, ecstatic symptoms, paralysis, perspiration, tears, shivering, paleness, and standing up of the bodily hairs appeared. The word Krishna came from their mouth falteringly. So we hear these wonderful descriptions of ecstasy. Also in the Gurvashtakam we hear similar ones. Romanchakam pashru taranga bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam. Here we hear of Kampashru, Kampa, Ashru, all these other, and then synonyms for the other symptoms. So these ecstasies which we celebrate present in Shri Guru, we find here being described in the bodies of Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai. When the stereotyped ritualistic Brahmins, however, who were following the Vedic principles, saw this ecstatic manifestation of love, they were struck with wonder, but not a very positive wonder. All these Brahmins began to reflect as follows. These Boidik Brahman, they began to, what did they think? They thought, Eto shonashir teje dekhi brahmo shomo shudre alingiya kene koren krondono. The Brahmins thought, we can see that this sannyasi has a luster like the effulgence of Brahman, But how is it he is crying upon embracing a Shudra, a member of the fourth caste in the social order? Maharaj, Mohapondit, Gambhira Shonashir Spurshe Mutto Hoilo Oshtir. They thought this Ramananda Rai is the governor of Madras, a highly learned and grave person, a Mahapandit. But upon touching the sannyasi, he has become restless like a madman. These people could not understand because, again, as we will delve deeper into in this chapter, they could not understand because they were too much restricted by the rules and regulations. Being Vedic Brahmins, they missed that essence of spiritual life. And they were not able to relish these high things that they were seeing. And there is again a purpose to these high things that they were seeing. There is a value to them, and there is a purpose for us being told that they could not properly relish it. Because until and unless we understand, the purpose of the Vedas, the purpose of the Vedic injunctions and rules and regulations, we too will miss the point and essence of this transcendental meeting. And then what will happen? If we minimize these things, if we do not properly relish them, if we do not properly respect their position and do not understand them to be higher than a mere ritualistic following of the rules and regulations, what then will happen? While the Brahmins were thinking in this way about the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw those outsiders and restrained his transcendental emotions. If we do not properly respect and properly understand the relations of the rules and regulations in light of such a great conversation, if it is either by niyamagraha, by over-attachment, or by under-attachment, then Mahaprabhu and Rai Ramananda will hide away the ecstatic truths that they are presenting here. We read, Prabhupada clarifies the terminology of what it means to be within that intimate position where one can have access to these higher things. Because Ramananda Rai, he understood the proper relationship that the Vedic rules and regulations had. He was to be accepted as Sajatiya, a person within the intimate circle of the Lord. However, if one does not properly understand these things, if one is more attached to Vedic ritual, or so detached that they do not allow themselves to purify before accessing it, if either one of these problems is greater than one's attachment to Mahaprabhu, then who are they? It is said, Dekhi, these people were seeing. But which people? The Vijatiya Lok. Vijatiya Lok. The outsiders. One will be rendered outside of the realm of Mahaprabhu's mercy. And being rendered outside that realm, one will not be able to delve into the heights that we are about to delve into in this conversation. And so, the nature of this conversation is very grand. Soon we are just about to begin it with text 29. Not properly, the Rai Ramananda Samvad proper begins with the question Mahaprabhu asks. However, they will begin speaking soon. However, before we begin to hear of them speaking, there are a few comments to be made about the Mangalacharan, which I have not commented upon yet. Because the Mangalacharan is very, very deep. It is a very ecstatic text, and if we mull over it, we can begin to have a wonderful tone to be set for what is the nature, again, of the conversation, the samvad between Ramananda Rai and Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so, what is this Mangalacharan? Sancharya Ramma Bidha Bhakta Meghe Svabhakti Siddhanta Chayamritani Gaurabdhir Etaya Ramuna Vitirnais Taj Gyatva Ratna Layatam Prayati. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is known as Gauranga, is the ocean of all conclusive knowledge and devotional service. The ocean of all Bhakti Siddhanta. He empowered Sri Ramananda Rai, who may be likened to a cloud of devotional service. This cloud was filled with the water of all the conclusive purports of devotional service and was empowered by the ocean to spread this water over the sea of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Thus, the ocean of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became filled with the jewels of the knowledge of pure devotional service. So here we are hearing something. We are hearing a rather peculiar thing being heard. Because we are finding out that Mahaprabhu is, again, the ocean of Bhakti Siddhanta. Siddhanta is we know, the Vedanta is the Vedanta, the conclusion of the Vedas, which is why it is the greatest of the philosophical schools. So the word anta can mean final and can also mean the final conclusion. And so the Siddhanta is that perfect final conclusion, because Siddha is the perfection. And what is Bhakti? We know devotional service. So the Bhakti Siddhanta is the perfected final conclusion of devotion. And so Mahaprabhu, he is the ocean of that. Of what? The Svabhakti Siddhanta. The Bhakti Siddhanta, the perfected devotional conclusions of himself. And this is not so confusing. This we can understand. This is very sweet. This is very beautiful. However, we can wonder, why then, being that ocean that is already full, does he empower this cloud of Ramananda Rai to rain over him the water of all conclusive purports of devotional service? And why does he empower it to spread this water all over the sea of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself? And, even more confusing, even more confusing than just thinking, why does Mahaprabhu need to hear these truths from Ramananda Rai? Why does this ocean of Mahaprabhu become filled with the jewels of the knowledge of pure devotional service because of this? Thus, the ocean becomes filled. Why does Mahaprabhu's knowledge become enriched and become greater? By hearing from Ramananda Rai. So these are two questions we can ask from here. Because we know, it is described in Caitanya Caritamrita, that Rai Ramananda says, actually the words I'm speaking, they are only coming because you, the Lord, are in my heart and you are speaking these words through me. These are not my own words. Maybe that is so. But why does Mahaprabhu need to hear these things? Mahaprabhu knows everything. Why does he need to hear these conclusions if he himself is the ocean of all conclusive knowledge and devotional service? And then why is he enriched by this hearing? Again, Rai Ramananda is Vishakha. Rai Ramananda is speaking from the perspective of one who has experienced all these high truths. This literary technique right here, it is echoing the understanding in the various Vedic literatures regarding the natural ecosystems. It's considered that if it is rained upon at the right time, that that in the ocean pearls form when rain happens in the appropriate month. If I remember correctly, it's the Shravan month of the year. And when this rain happens, only in that time, because of the cause of the rain has caused the pearls to grow in the ocean. So it is directly this rain which is causing these jewels to form. So then again, what's to go here as well? There are a lot of mysteries that undergird this chapter. To understand this, we should understand the iconic distinction within our philosophy, that between jnana and vijnana, the difference between knowledge and realization. Yes, Mahaprabhu is the ocean of all conclusive truths of devotional service. Yes, he knows all these things. And it is very sweet that he does. But has he realized these things? Has he experienced these things fully? Mahaprabhu is enriched because even though he has knowledge of devotion, he has not yet fully experienced it. But who has? His devotee has. And so, by hearing it from the mouth of Vishakha Gopi, the mouth of Ramananda Rai, now Mahaprabhu, he is hearing these wonderful things. Because Mahaprabhu now, he is hearing all of these things which he knew in theory before coming through practically. Because he has not really experienced the height of these things yet. He is still searching. And that comes back to, again, the mood of the South India tour. It is a search. It is a search for all of the lost jivas, yes. It is a search to find them and to bring them to devotional service, yes. But it is also internally a search of Mahaprabhu for the mood and heart of Radharani and his devotee. And he can only find that if he hears these conclusions, if he hears of this devotion through the mouth, through the consciousness, through the ananya chetaha of a pure devotee who has experienced these things. And so then, even Mahaprabhu, even that great ocean, again, of devotional knowledge becomes enriched by hearing the nectarian words which are raining down upon Mahaprabhu from the mouth of Sri Ramananda Rai. This is the height of the conversation that is about to ensue. Here we find something that, let alone for us to become enriched in hearing, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself is enriched in hearing. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself finds so important that He has traveled, and in one sense He has incarnated upon this earth as His Gaura avatar, purely to hear this. This is the elevated nature of the Rai Ramananda Samvad. And so, what benefit then can we get from it? A lot, if we approach it appropriately. Such high things that they even lay mystery to a degree to the Supreme Person, they are very, very high. So, in the discussion of these things, we won't go infinitely deep into every point. However, still there is so much benefit to be had. And in this way, we can understand this wonderful invocation, the first text of this 8th chapter of Madhya Lila. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who is known as Gauranga, is the ocean of all conclusive knowledge and devotional service. He empowered Sri Ramananda Rai, who may be likened to a cloud of devotional service. This cloud was filled with the water of all the conclusive purports of devotional service and was empowered by the ocean to spread this water over the sea of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Thus, the ocean of Caitanya Mahaprabhu became filled with the jewels of the knowledge of pure devotional service. So with this, we hear, this is the nature of this interaction. And this is the importance of why Srila Prabhupada clarifies that this is Vishakha who is here. And why Srila Prabhupada does not give as much importance to the identification that is had with Rai Ramananda as Lalita, which is still a valid view. However, in the context of this text, he has clearly stated that it is to be understood as Vishaka. However, that is not to say that Vishaka is greater than Lalita. That is not to minimize Lalita. In fact, that is to maximize her transcendental glories, her transcendental beauty, her transcendental and highest value. It is not that she has no value because of this. It is not that she has less value because of this. She has immense value. It is a glorification of that special mood that she has. It is said in the Radha Krishna Ganodesha Deepika that she is the one who is able to speak heavy words to Krishna, to put him in his place almost. This is a very special ras. It is a very special service to Krishna. And so we should understand this, especially on today, as a glorification of that special mood which Lalita has. Which is why we see in Krishna Balaram Mandir, if we go and take darshan of the beautiful Shri Shri Radha Shyama Sundar there, we will see, unlike Mayapur Dham, which has all the Ashta Sakhis, we will find there who? Lalita and Vishaka. And who will we see with Vishaka? Who will we see with her? We will see Radharani. And who will we see with Lalita? Krishna. Maybe she's letting Krishna knows what she thinks there, but who knows? I don't have insight to see those things. But we see that because of that closeness that she has in the mood to Radharani, Vishaka now is speaking those things. But because of that special mood that she has in speaking up to Krishna and to inspire Radharani to put her foot down and thereby make her pastimes with Krishna ever the more sweeter, Lalita is also engaged in such great service as well, and also is so greatly elevated. And therefore she is also listed as the first in all listings, also because of age, but in the listings of the Ashtasakhis. So from here, we should understand the glories of Vishaka, but also the glories of Lalita, especially on this day. So, Shri Shri Lalita Sakhi ki jai, Shri Krishna's Kaviraj Thakur ki jai, Shri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.